He was not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge. This is a dangerous time, and I ask all my colleagues to consider whether these plain comments by this person and by his own Trump administration colleagues should be given a blind eye, just overlooked, or whether, like the warnings of pardoning violent January 6 offenders, they're warnings to be heeded.
What we just witnessed was nothing short of astonishing. Kash Patel, during his recent testimony, appeared visibly flustered as Senator Sheldon Whitehouse posed a series of probing questions. This moment highlighted concerns that have been circulating regarding Patel's fitness for his role. Senator Whitehouse emphasized that Patel is not only unfit for the position, but also poses a potential danger due to his controversial views and actions. The tension in the room was palpable as Patel struggled to articulate his responses, raising further doubts about his credibility and competence. This exchange is just the beginning of what promises to be a contentious investigation. As the scrutiny intensifies, it's clear that Patel's past decisions will come under even greater examination. We have more live footage from this hearing that you won't want to miss. Let's dive into the details and see how this unfolds further, revealing the implications of Patel's testimony and the broader political ramifications at play.
Thanks, Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Patel. I remember January 6th. Colleagues running through our halls to flee the mob, colleagues shouting that rioters should be shot, us returning to our constitutional business through hallways cleared for us by automatic weapons-carrying SWAT teams. None of you, none of us, said those violent rioters should be pardoned. A Republican colleague said such pardons would be hard to believe, even absurd. Your former colleague J.D. Vance said the violent rioters should not be pardoned. Even Jim Jordan said pardons would, and I quote, focus on all the people who didn't commit any violence. Well, Trump pardoned all of them. And there's a lesson in that. Every time you think Trump would never go that far, rethink that. We all seem to agree that violence against police is unacceptable, yet more than 600 people who physically attacked Capitol Police officers were just put back on the street, part of a 1,500-person personal Trump army, now out there with people who have proven themselves willing to do violence on Trump's call. In only 10 days, some are already back committing crimes. We've also tried as a committee, together, to address the dangers of illicit drug sales over the internet, and I assume we're all against murder for hire. But Trump also just pardoned a dark web operator sentenced to life in prison for trafficking illegal drugs online and accused of soliciting murders for hire. Those pardons, as Mr. Patel has said, are a mistake, but they are also a signal that we are entering a strange and dangerous time. That is the context for today's hearing. Warnings that the FBI could become Trump's enforcer, use the powers of law enforcement to stifle speech and dissent, punish political rivals of either party, and hand out free passes, get out of jail free cards to violent supporters are warnings we should heed. Here are some warnings of this nominee's Trump administration colleagues. Former Attorney General Bill Barr said, this nominee has virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, end quote, and we would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. That's for the deputy position. Former CIA Director Gina Haspel was reported threatening to resign rather than have this nominee serve under her. John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, said, I didn't think he was qualified. I was forced to hire him. Trump's deputy national security advisor, the nominee's former supervisor, said, "His ideas are ludicrous. He's absolutely unqualified for this job. He's untrustworthy. And it's an absolute disgrace to even consider an individual of this nature." That's from Republican appointees who worked with him. And here's what this nominee himself has said about using his office to prosecute journalists. "We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. We're gonna come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly." Is that a correct quotation, Mr. Patel?
Senator, that's a partial quotation,
But it's correct.
in part.
Regarding his publication of his enemies list, Mr. Patel proclaimed, "The manhunt starts tomorrow," and reposted a video depicting him taking a chainsaw to his political enemies. Is that you, Kash Patel, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that meme.
Is that you reposting it, was my question.
And that's me at the top.
You said FBI agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, "beyond a reasonable doubt." Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect, and I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
I'll give you an opportunity in writing, but this is my time now.
Have at it.
An Inspector Attorney General investigation found that that was false. And you said we should impeach judges who rule against Donald Trump, who are, in your words, political terrorists. When this nominee tries to explain all this away, keep one thing in mind. He's testified under oath before a Colorado judge who presided over a Trump case in which he was a witness. And the judge found, and I'm quoting here, he was not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge. This is a dangerous time, and I ask all my colleagues to consider whether these plain comments by this person and by his own Trump administration colleagues should be given a blind eye, just overlooked, or whether, like the warnings of pardoning violent January 6 offenders, they're warnings to be heeded. There is an unfathomable difference between a seeming facade being constructed around this nominee here today and what he has actually done and said in real life when left to his own devices. Conduct shows character. And if you look at history, you see the danger of security chiefs in authoritarian regimes becoming the tools of political power. The characteristics that they often show are that they are vengeful, that they are grandiose, that they are intemperate, that they are partisan and blindly loyal, and that they are servile and won't say no. I'm afraid that the history of this nominee's conduct raises those warnings.
It wasn't just another hearing on Capitol Hill. It was a flashing red light about the future of America's most powerful law enforcement agency. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse didn't mince words. His questioning drilled into the dangerous consequences of appointing political loyalists to positions where impartiality isn't optional. It's everything. The issue on the table wasn't abstract. A president who pardoned hundreds of rioters who beat Capitol Police. A nominee with a record of incendiary threats, partisan rhetoric, and credibility, shredded by a Colorado judge who flatly declared his testimony unreliable. Add respected Republican voices warning that this candidate lacks the judgment required to run the FBI, and what you have is more than a personnel problem. You have a national security risk. Whitehouse laid it out plainly. The FBI isn't just another federal office. It carries the extraordinary power to investigate, to raid homes, to seize evidence, and to bring cases that can topple lives, careers, and even institutions. Those powers are accepted in a democracy only if they are wielded fairly, impartially, and transparently. That credibility evaporates the moment the public believes the FBI is being used as a weapon of political revenge. And that's exactly the danger Whitehouse identified. An FBI director chosen primarily for loyalty to one politician rather than loyalty to the Constitution risks turning an agency designed for justice into a partisan enforcement arm. He pointed to the nominee's social media posts and public remarks language about manhunts, vengeance against journalists, and blanket defenses of pardons for violent rioters. That's not the measured tone of a career investigator. It's the script of a political operative. And it's not just rhetoric. When a sitting judge concludes under oath that your testimony is not credible, it isn't a campaign jab. It's a legal finding that undermines your fitness to lead an agency whose strength depends on truth. Why should Americans care? Because this is exactly how democracies slide toward authoritarian habits, not in one dramatic collapse, but in incremental compromises. Leaders of weak regimes often share the same traits: personal loyalty above professional duty, grandiose threats, contempt for dissent, and a willingness to bend the rules. The result isn't a dictatorship overnight. It's a steady erosion, selective prosecutions, partisan investigations, silence from career staff afraid to speak out, collapsing morale inside the ranks, and a public that stops trusting its own institutions. Whitehouse also zeroed in on one chilling consequence that reaches far beyond the FBI building: the chilling effect on free speech and transparency. When top officials publicly float the idea of targeting reporters or punishing critics, the ripple effect is immediate. Sources hesitate, whistleblowers retreat, watchdogs go quiet. That silence is a gift to corruption and a dagger in the heart of accountability. The press and whistleblowers are not enemies of the state. They are the first line of defense against abuse. Undermining them doesn't just damage journalism, it blinds the American people. So what should be done? Whitehouse's warning pointed to a roadmap. First, the Senate must measure nominees against a real standard of fitness for office, not partisan loyalty tests. Ask whether this person has demonstrated impartiality, whether they can manage a sprawling national workforce, whether they respect judicial findings, whether they can sit under oath and tell the truth. If the answer is no, the nomination should end there. Second, strengthen the guardrails. Protect inspectors general. Shield career agents and prosecutors from political interference. Put explicit limits on how law enforcement powers can be misused, and enforce those limits through serious congressional oversight. Third, defend the civic ecosystem that keeps democracy alive. Protect whistleblowers. Safeguard independent journalism. Make sure the people who expose wrongdoing aren't punished but protected. And citizens have a role to play too. Demand that senators weigh the full record, not just the talking points. Call for the release of documents that reveal how decisions were made. Support organizations that fight for institutional independence. And above all, vote for leaders who treat the rule of law not as a slogan, but as a principle. Senator Whitehouse's message carried urgency because the stakes couldn't be higher. The FBI's power rests not on guns or subpoenas, but on public trust. Lose that, and the institution collapses from within. An agency built to protect democracy can't become a partisan weapon. And when a nominee comes before the Senate already carrying the baggage of threats, evasions, and discredited testimony, the only responsible choice is to say no. So the question now passes to all of us. Do we demand impartiality and accountability, or do we accept a law enforcement agency bent by political will? That's not a partisan question. It's a test of whether we still believe in the principles that make democracy work. If you think integrity still matters, then stay engaged. Share this video. Leave your opinion in the comments. Do you trust Congress to hold the line here, or has politicization already gone too far? And subscribe, because the fight to keep institutions independent is far from over. The stakes aren't abstract. They're about truth, trust, and whether the rule of law still means something in America.